Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Andrew Laidley. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced policy changes for two National Housing Trust (NHT) benefits. The changes, which took effect today, saw increases in the amount of money persons will be able to access for loans on open market houses and loans to carry out work on already mortgaged properties. Here's more. The policy changes will allow all qualified contributors to borrow up to $5.5 million to purchase any house on the open market. Previously, only contributors who were constructing or who were buying into new developments and whose practical completion certificate dated September 1, 2015 and after could access the loan category. The loan limit for the 15-plus category has also been changed, which has been increased from $1.5 million to $2.5 million. This would bring the 15-plus loan in line with the other NHT homeowners loan. The 15-plus loan is for NHT contributors who want to repair, improve, or expand on existing mortgaged property, or those who want to purchase or construct a residential property once the beneficiary is no longer a homeowner. Prior to May 1 this year, an NHT contributor who was a homeowner but had never accessed an NHT mortgage benefit was eligible for a maximum loan of $1.5 million. The Prime Minister announced the changes at the groundbreaking ceremony for the villages of Colbeck Castle Phases 1 and 2. He said the NHT must fulfill its mandate to build more houses for Jamaicans to access.
We are widening the reach of the NHT, increasing the allocation to ensure that all Jamaicans have a housing solution.
Mr. Holness also says increasing the housing stock will allow the cost of squatting to be higher than that of acquiring a legal home.
You could have sympathy for squatting if the government wasn't building, but now the government is building, so the sympathy for squatting must decline.
Mayberry Investments, the lead financial advisor and broker to Express Catering, says the basis of allotment of shares has been determined. A Mayberry Investments release said it received a total of 1,270 applications valued at just over $1 billion. That was more than twice the value of shares offered in the Express Catering prospectus. The company offered shares valued at over $491 million. Mayberry said of the total applications, 1,237 valued at $634.5 million were received in the public pool, approximately 13 times the value of shares on offer in that pool. The basis of allotment of the shares were determined in accordance with the terms and conditions set out in the prospectus. The company reserved shares were allocated 100%. Mayberry reserved shares were allocated 100%. Key partner reserved applications were allocated 100%. Meanwhile, shares for the general public were allocated as follows. The first 12,000 shares were allocated 100%, and the balance in excess of 12,000 units was allocated approximately 4.57%. In the meantime, Mayberry noted that these bases are preliminary and are subject to reconciliation with the Jamaica Central Securities Depository. Combating fraudsters have become a focal point for many financial institutions and cyber-related entities. The scourge of fraudulent cyber activities have led to recent correspondent banking issues and ABM frauds. But one local company says they have a fix which could stop fraudsters in their tracks. More in this report. ACL Commercial Manager for MC Systems, Dodge Renewal, says the software his company is recommending is known for identifying irregularities in any database.
I've seen where persons are being paid prior to start dates in an organization. Payments go out to terminated employees. For example, persons going into the system to make unusual changes when you should be in your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mr. Newell says MC Systems is currently working on rolling out tools which will detect and prevent fraudsters from using skimmers and other devices at the ATM to get people's PIN information.
We're also into the ATM business with Diebold, but it doesn't just stop there. What we're looking at are value add onto these machines to protect our partners or members' monies. Persons are able to go into some machines, install devices on those machines, to track persons' PINs, to track and have access into your account. MC Systems is on a path to working with our partners across the Caribbean to ensure that we have cutting-edge technology that keeps us ahead of the fraudsters.
He says the system is not just for government. The software is also perfect for private entities and even MSMEs.
This is being pitched to everyone. Everyone has fraud problems. It's not just limited to government. This is right across the board. Private sector, public sector, all verticals, financial, healthcare, all sectors.
Still to come, social enterprise being used as a transformation tool in Jamaica. The details after the break. Welcome back. General Manager of JN Foundation, Safri Brown, says the social enterprise model in Jamaica is sustainable. She was a guest on the latest episode of BATV's On Point. Anthony Morgan reports.
Safri Brown says social enterprise in Jamaica is one that will last, as the focus has been on finding people who can provide social solutions and are able to get things moving in the right direction.
You know, I believe that the model is extremely sustainable. A lot of the work that we've been doing is about pulling in the right people like a Shahid Kool. We have a lot of social entrepreneurs that are entrepreneurs first and foremost that are providing social solutions. So university graduates, young people coming out with a sense of entrepreneurship, but they want to be involved in a business that's creating more shared value. So what you're finding is through the work that we've been doing and others have been doing in the field is it's becoming more and more appealing to people who want to actually dedicate their lives, yes, to business and to support their families and to support their communities, but also to create some kind of solution.
She says young people who are being employed by these enterprises are also grasping the idea that pure capitalism doesn't work.
You cannot have a model that purely extracts and only thinks about kind of financial gain, because you're not looking at the other cost implications around environmental and social costs. As you know, business is also evolving, so the whole idea of corporate social responsibility has been moving more towards shared value and corporate venturing. But there's this whole argument that you don't know the true cost of business if you're only monitoring and evaluating and measuring financial costs. And if you don't know environmental, social and economic costs of business, then you're not really measuring the true cost of business.
In the meantime, she notes that the industry has also embarked on capacity building to ensure that stakeholders are applying the right methods needed for a sustainable model.
And there are others in the industry. You've got the Office of Social Entrepreneurship up at UWI, you've got the Branson Center, you've got others providing this kind of social enterprise, social entrepreneurship model, which is really about, you know, businesses applying the triple bottom line, economic, social, what they call the 3 Ps, people, planet, profit. That you always consider these 3 things in any business. And the only way to develop truly sustainable businesses and truly sustainable communities is to always take into account people, planet, and profit. And if you take any one of those P's away, you don't have sustainable growth.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Meanwhile, Safri Brown says the sector has been getting meaningful support as it's being recognized as a tool for transformation. Here's more.
The JN Foundation General Manager says the support social enterprises have been getting from the government and other critical agencies has improved.
So we have, you know, different government ministries get involved in different components of the project, but we've especially engaged through the Planning Institute of Jamaica, the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, to make sure that social enterprise is worked into the MSME policy under the recent MSME policy review. And PIOJ is also utilizing social enterprise and the methodology as a way to address community transformation across Jamaica, because they see it as this kind of sustainable tool for transformation.
She says with the success of the August Town project, social enterprises have been displaying that they too can do sustained interventions. She says the government and agencies like the PIOJ have been creating an enabling environment for these entrepreneurs.
If we were to give an example like the PIOJ has been very, very involved in ensuring that we're really pushing forward the social enterprise agenda and MICAF and creating that sort of enabling environment so that the sector can grow. And then the individual, Ministry of Education, for example, want to utilize the social enterprise model for their youth information centers. So there are these ideas about, taking that model and applying it to some of the provision that's happening out there. And I think, in all truth and fairness, so far we've got really positive responses from whichever government agencies we've gone to and spoken to and asked to get involved.
In the meantime, Ms. Brown says these enterprises will have to continue proof of concept and show that they are creating an impact on society.
We're doing a lot of work around measurement and how you show impact, how you show benefit. I mean, if you were to do an example of the whole idea of inclusion, right? I mean, social enterprises are a great model for inclusive business. And this whole idea that sort of the most marginalized of society can actually become key players in social enterprises.
For BATV News, I'm Amita Prasad Webb.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says approximately 14,000 new business process outsourcing BPO jobs are expected to be created by the first quarter of 2018. This, he notes, is in addition to 4,000 that were generated between April 2016 and March this year. He made the disclosure during last Thursday's second Hope for Jamaica Town Hall meeting at the old Goodyear Factory complex in Morant Bay, St. Thomas. The meeting was organized by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Mr. Holness said 2,000 of the projected new jobs would result from the Port Authority of Jamaica's development of new facilities in Montego Bay, with another 5,000 from BPO projects being undertaken by the government in Portmore, St. Catherine. He indicated that the remaining 7,000 would be generated through programmed private sector engagements. Meanwhile, Mr. Holness advised that the government has received expressions of interest in the 80,000 square feet of BPO space that will be created in the new Morant Bay Urban Center. 2 BPO facilities that will employ 3,000 persons working on 2 shifts are being developed at the 365,000 square foot center. The work on the center is being spearheaded by the Factories Corporation of Jamaica at a cost of $4 billion. The center, to be situated at the 25-acre property that housed the old Goodyear factory, has an expansion capacity for an additional 80,000 square feet to provide another 3,000 BPO jobs, all targeting mainly young people. Mr. Holness indicated that the government had commenced promoting the facility, which resulted in the expressions of interest. However, he noted that no formal arrangements have yet been established. Meanwhile, the $384 million Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project, which entails rehabilitation of the 110-kilometer roadway between Harborview in Kingston and Port Antonio in Portland, is expected to get underway in early 2018. National Works Agency NWA Communications and Customer Service Manager Stephen Shaw says the Environmental Impact Assessment EIA study, which is required for the project's implementation, is being pursued by the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA. On completion, NEPA, the NWA, and other relevant government agencies and stakeholders will meet to determine a date for a public forum with residents of St. Thomas. Mr. Shaw was also addressing St. Thomas residents during the second Hope for Jamaica Town Hall meeting last Thursday. Mr. Shaw said the project will be executed by China Harbor Engineering Company Limited, CHEC. It will entail realignment and widening of the roadway to 4 lanes, among other features, which would require land acquisition along the designated sections. Mr. Shaw said the NWA was preparing a cabinet submission for presentation shortly, adding that the land acquisition exercise will start very soon. He also advised that CHEC has submitted preliminary designs and is now finalizing the documents. And stay with us, regional and international stories are next. Welcome back. It's time for regional and international news. Violence has marred an unofficial referendum staged by the opposition in Venezuela. One person was killed when a gang allegedly shot at a crowd of voters opposition parties organized. The vote to ask people if they want the government of President Nicolas Maduro to change the constitution without consulting them first. President Maduro says it's the only way to beat the economic crisis and restore peace. Al Jazeera's John Holman reports from Cucuta, Colombia.
There was a peaceful, almost festive atmosphere in the unofficial referendum called by the Venezuelan opposition this Sunday. Until this happened. A gang of motorcyclists opened fire on voters in a traditionally pro-government neighborhood. At least one person died, hundreds fled. It was a snapshot of the tensions in a divided country, tensions that have only increased since President Nicolas Maduro announced plans to overhaul the constitution. The opposition and international observers worry that he's trying to rewrite the rules to do away with Venezuela's already faltering democracy. They asked people to vote against the overhaul.
Today, Venezuela is saying to the government, we are going down the wrong road. The course has to be corrected in a radical way.
Moderators announced that more than 7 million people took part, almost all voting against changes to the constitution without the people being consulted first. Polls opened not just in Venezuela, but also in 75 countries around the world for the Venezuelan diaspora, according to the opposition. Carolina voted in Colombia, where she moved when she couldn't get treatment for her daughter's illness back home. For her and many others, this vote was about more than just the constitution in a country that's struggling with shortages and crime.
I want change, a change of government, medicine, food, liberty for my children to go to school without fear of criminals or the police. I want them to grow up free.
But for all the hope, it's far from certain this will count for anything. This unofficial referendum means both everything in the sense that it's hugely symbolic that so many people have come out to vote against changes in the constitution, and at the same time nothing in the sense that the results won't be independently verified or recognised by the government. The government is going ahead with their plans to pick the assembly which will rewrite the constitution with elections in 2 weeks, even using Sunday to mobilise its own supporters in a practice for that vote. President Maduro says it's the only way to solve Venezuela's economic crisis and unite a divided country. There are plenty who don't believe him. This was the moment to make their voices heard. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Cucuta, Colombia.
In Libya, many are struggling to get the basics of everyday life. Many businesses have shut down during 3 years of civil war, and the financial crisis is only getting worse as rival governments continue their battle for power. More in this Al Jazeera report.
There are no customers for Abdul Salam and his fellow shop owners at this market of traditional outfits in Tripoli. The financial crisis in Libya has hurt almost all sectors. They make use of their time by discussing their profession while waiting for a change.
Our situation is worse than before. We feel the change. Purchasing was better before. Customers used to buy many pieces at a time, but now they hardly buy one piece and even pay in installments.
They have to import materials using hard currency, but the Libyan dinar's value has collapsed in the black market. That means they have lost a lot of revenue. So much so they say they can hardly pay the rent on their shops.
The shop owners here we talk to say they are not selling as much as they used to 3 years ago. The recession that has been caused by political rivalries and internal fighting in different parts of the country has affected many aspects of life and consequently people's living conditions.
The devastating war in Benghazi, the second largest city, and the blockage of oil ports have cost Libya's treasury more than $100 billion over the last 4 years. The country has been struggling to cope with the continuing fighting among rival militias and competing governments. Public sector's employees are receiving only a 1-month salary every 5 months. While some businesses are striving to survive, a number of shops have closed down.
We have reduced our consumption to only basic needs and medicine. Prices are going up on a daily basis. People are so tired. We are calling on officials to look into such issues seriously. People are fed up.
There are international efforts to bring peace to Libya. Many people like Abdul Salam are hopeful that their situation can get better soon. Mahmoud Abdul Wahid, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
British and European Union envoys today began a first round of negotiations on Britain's divorce from the EU. Kate King reports.
A jovial mood in the corridors of change ahead of the first full round of talks on Britain's exit from the EU. Pleasantries aside, both parties keen to stress they're ready to tackle the tough issues.
Now it's time to get down to work and make this a successful negotiation.
Successful for who could end up being the biggest question. The UK clear on what its priorities are.
The issue of citizens' rights, the issue of finance, the issue of separation issues, and of course, separately, Northern Ireland.
But first, Britain may need to sort out its own parliament. Theresa May's cabinet appears to be bitterly divided over the type of outcome it wants from the Brexit talks. Finance Minister Philip Hammond has emerged as the champion of a soft Brexit, prioritising trade ties with the EU over curbing immigration.
I look back to the general election where Mrs May was expecting a significant majority as a turning point in terms of the Conservative approach to the Brexit negotiations. And I think that she no longer has the whip hand in terms of keeping her troops in order. And against that backcloth, we should expect there to be considerable dissent.
A soft Brexit could also see a transition period of 2 years or more post-Brexit in March 2019. So the EU's likely to demand that Britain pays some €60 billion to cover ongoing EU budget commitments before it budges on much else.
As you know, our negotiating groups will work on citizens' rights, on the financial settlement.
There's not expected to be any update on how divorce negotiations are going until Thursday, a sign no one wants any dirty laundry aired in public.
China's economy grew faster than expected in the second quarter. However, analysts are expecting it to slow down as policymakers act to contain financial risk. Ryan Brooks reports.
A better-than-expected report card for China's economy, holding steady at 6.9% growth from April to June. Analysts figured the world's #2 economy would lose momentum because Beijing's trying to contain some major risks. But for now, the usual suspects have kept things on track. Factory output and retail both growing at a fast clip. And while exports have recovered and property construction is booming, many expect policies later this year will stunt growth as Beijing tries to rein in surging housing prices and a rapid buildup of debt, which has ballooned to a dangerous 277% of the country's GDP. But a spike in worldwide demand for Chinese products could help ease that load. And with 2 quarters of expansion hitting higher than Beijing's target for the year, the government may find lower growth in the second half easier to swallow. Officials have been working to keep the economy at a pace, at least until this autumn's Communist Party Congress to choose China's top leaders.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 44 stocks traded today, of which 16 advanced, 24 declined, and 4 traded firm. The main JC index declined by 432 points to close at over 233,000. The junior index also declined by 21 points to close at more than 2,000 points. 1.6 million units traded, valued at over $16 million on the Jamaican dollars market. And on the US dollar market, over 125,000 units traded, valued at more than 29,000 US dollars. Cable and wireless with over 367,000 units changing hands accounted for 22% of the market volume. JMMB Group was second with 346,670 units trading. Caribbean producers accounted for 300,000 units, amounting to 18% of the market volume crossing the floor. Berger Paints was the top advancer, up $2.70 to close at $16, followed by Caribbean producers up 32 cents to close at $3.50, and Blue Power Group up $3.79 to close at $50. The main decliners were Main Event Entertainment Group, down 59 cents to close at $5.22, followed by Caribbean Cream losing 60 cents to close at $6.60, and Paramount trading down 24 cents to close at $2.75. And that's all the news we have for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced policy changes for two National Housing Trust NHT benefits. The changes, which took effect today, saw increases in the amount of money persons will be able to access for loans on open market houses and loans to carry out work on already mortgaged properties. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Andrew Laidley. Pleasant viewing.